Hey everyone, Dave Martinson here for Driving Sales News. While at NADA 2016, I sat down with vendors and industry thought leaders to discuss a wide variety of topics, including digital marketing and how dealerships can tell their story online and capture more digital traffic. One topic that was discussed was effective dealership marketing campaigns versus simply checking a box.
I think there's two major mistakes we see. One, dealers who are complacent and say, I do these things. I do search, I do display. I think of that as checkbox marketing. And they don't have the ability to actually vet the vendor and say, is this the right vendor? And that leads me to the second part. You know, the vast majority of the media that is bought, Google, Facebook, Bing, etc., the KPIs that the dealer has access to through their partner or direct is vertical agnostic. And as a general manager, if I say this is how many impressions I served and clicks and click-through rate, it doesn't really mean anything, whether or not did it sell me more cars. It's just the KPI that's vertical agnostic. So the second biggest concern we have that we're very proud that we've been able to solve for is a dealership needs to, in any media, but especially digital, make the decision just like they did in traditional 40 years ago. Which vehicles do I need to market? To what audience?
Another aspect of dealership marketing is telling your brand story. Customers need to understand what differentiates your store. According to one thought leader, being in business for 30 years isn't necessarily a compelling reason to buy from you.
Make sure you've got a differentiating message. Okay, that's a real big piece of the puzzle. Not, we've got the lowest financing rates. We're not going to be beat. And even that idea, we've been in business for 30 years. Unfortunately, the typical consumer doesn't care. Okay, if they're going to go to a dealership of awesome and have an incredible experience, and you can actually communicate that consistently in your branding, and when they get to the punchline, when they get to that store, they feel that this is an awesome experience, they feel it's totally different, it is consistent with the brand messaging, then that's going to be super helpful. That's going to be vital.
When dealers tell their brand story, how is it communicated? How might they try to communicate with the up-and-coming generation of millennials?
We've been doing a lot of research internally at NetCertive on millennials, and it's fun to think about this. So a millennial's preference of communication, or their preferred modes of communication, so it's something like first is text, and then the second is email, and they only read the subject lines in an email. And then the third is social, and then the fourth is phone call, and then the fifth is face-to-face. So I think a lot of this flatlining for click-to-call, millennials, they don't want to talk on the phone to a dealer. I'm not a millennial, I'm Generation Xer, very proudly, but I don't want to call into a dealer either. So what's happening, and it's funny because baby boomers, you've just basically flipped that order on its head. So you have a lot of baby boomers in a car dealership selling cars, and their preferred mode of communication is phone call, face-to-face. So they're trying to reach millennials in this, inverse preferred mode of communication, right? So it's just simply not working.
One mistake dealers may make when it comes to calculating the ROI of their marketing efforts is to use what has been called old media math.
I think when I look at dealerships across the country today, they tend to use what I'll call old media math, which is how many leads did the internet generate divided by how much money I spent to generate a cost per sale. Consumer behavior has changed a lot because of mobile devices, and I think the old measures that are coming out of dealer CRM systems, while directionally accurate, they don't capture the full story.
One industry analyst noted that consumers are digitally inspecting dealerships 24/7.
So it's really critical for our dealers to understand that even though the car's right there, our customers, they're still digital showrooming. And the way I kind of like to frame it is, I love to go out to restaurants, and if you go to a restaurant, you can see the menu, you've got the menu right there, and there's other folks eating dinner, but I always go and I check Yelp. And I'm looking at the reviews of, the restaurant. What should I eat today? Consumers are doing the same thing when they're shopping for cars.
What does your store spend its ad dollars on? Is that money being effectively targeted?
So we see so many dealers say, I spend X dollars on X digital media, but if you actually peel back the onion one layer and say, okay, which of the vehicles did you boost last month and why? They have no response. If you're a Ford store and they're privileged to get a new Ford GT coming out, there is a waiting list on the car. No one will be able to get these cars other than a select few hundred folks, yet there's already huge search demand. So in that exaggerated story, which is not typical for a franchise store, why do you spend limited dollars on a vehicle that's high demand, low supply? On the flip side, we all know that a vehicle with no price and no photos has a very low probability of driving someone into the showroom, so why should we invest limited ad dollars on a unit that isn't yet ready to be marketed? So our whole focus is boosting the vehicles that need to be marketed and spend the ad dollars on search, display, retargeting, social, Waze, and the list goes on at the right time when there's a micro moment that shows we have the probability of converting them into an up.